Tony, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of In Conversation With. It's really great to have a catch up since we last spoke in May 2020 and it now being January 2021. So much has happened since we last spoke. I thought it would be good to have another chat on the channel. So we've got 3 questions as usual. And the first one we'd like to ask is, what progress has South West Mutual made since last spring?
Thanks, Bex. Yeah, well, since we last spoke in May, we are pleased that we have made steady progress towards establishing our mutual bank. The most notable things, I guess, are firstly, we submitted our first full draft of the regulatory business plan to the banking regulators. So this is a substantial document that's very detailed about how the bank will operate, who its customers are, what products we want to sell, and then lots of technical detail about how the bank is run safely and for the benefit of its customers. Now that's still a long way to go, but we've had good feedback on that, and we're continuing to progress with the banking license documents and application, which we hope we can put in later this year with a view to getting our provisional license in 2022. The other thing that's happened is that we've, succeeded in raising more money, and we're very pleased to have the continued support of Plymouth City Council, who've invested a further 60,000, but also a lot of our private shareholders, our private investors, who, are very supportive of seeing a regional mutual bank come into being. Some of them have also invested some more. So we raised 125,000 more in October. And we're very excited now, actually, that the Heart of Southwest Local Enterprise Partnership is also seeking to invest a sum of money. So a very important institution for us in the region, with their role in coordinating economic strategy and forward-looking to sort of invigorate the Southwest economy. So it's great to be working with the LEP. And last but not least, we've just received a further award of grant funding from the Open Society Foundations, who are promoting financial inclusion and cooperatives in the UK. And obviously, that's very much part of our mission. So, we're quite pleased with that process. I think we'll come on to discuss what's been difficult this year, last year, 2020, and what continues to be difficult. But yeah, overall, we're moving forward steadily and surely.
Amazing. It's so great to hear about the different places from that support is coming from. It's a really varied group of organisations, I suppose. So our second question, as you pointed to, is how has the continued COVID-19 pandemic affected South West Mutual's future plans?
Well, like many organisations, we have been affected. Although I have to say, we're very our great sympathies lie with not just the people affected by COVID, of course, but the businesses as well that are suffering and may never recover from the economic fallout. So this is a massive challenge for the Southwest. We've also been affected because it's been a really challenging investment climate. So understandably, due to the huge economic uncertainty last year, that has delayed and slowed down our plans to putting in place the major investment that we're going to need to capitalise the bank in order to launch. We're going to need more than £20 million to set up the capital of the bank for allow us to start trading. And many of the sorts of investors that we're speaking to, who are socially orientated investors, including local authorities, but also social impact investors, have naturally and understandably and rightly last year been very focused on responding to the challenges of COVID and protecting vulnerable communities. So there's been, a real focus towards, tackling that public health emergency and the economic consequences. And that's meant that, we've been a little bit on the back burner in terms of immediate priorities. But actually also a lot of people have at the same time recognized that when we start to look to the future and how we can rebuild the economy and actually perhaps rebuild it hopefully better and as a more equal and prosperous and sustainable economy than it was before, then the role of a regional mutual bank in making that happen has become more important rather than less important.
Mm. Yeah, of course. And I think that's always challenging, is to respond to short-term challenges as well as think ahead to long-term impacts and how we can get better at those. Great, thank you, Tony. Well, our third question is, it's a bit of an open one, but there's been even more talk about finance issues such as cash since we last spoke. Do you think the conversations around regional banking, the cashless society, sustainable finance, and so on have developed in a way that's advantageous to society?
Well, this is a really big question, Bex. There's a lot to sort of dig into here, isn't there? So in some ways, the enforced changes to the way that we've been carrying on our lives has positives and negatives. It's accelerated existing trends towards a cashless society. Personally, I don't think that there will ever, well, not within any reasonable time horizon, be a cashless society. Less cash perhaps, but not entirely cashless. So that's been a trend for a while. But I think what's important is that it's also been recognised by government, central government down to local government and the industry, hopefully, that there are many communities and people for whom cash remains really important as a day-to-day means of payment and of being able to budget and being able to manage their financial affairs. And it's been really concerning. It's always been a big concern of ours that the rest of the industry, the big high street banks, have increasingly been withdrawing those facilities from communities, and a lot of the new challenger banks, the fintech-based challenger banks, they're not interested in offering that at all. Mm. So it remains a very important part of our financial inclusion mission that we find ways of serving in a way that's commercially viable for us, because we are a business, we're a social enterprise ourselves, so it has to stack up. But the challenge is to find ways to continue to serve those communities, and there are innovative ways we can do that, and we're looking at particularly working with the post office, but also pay point outlets, which are in convenient locations in every small town and villages across the southwest. So there are other ways, multiple ways, I think, is what we need of trying to serve the continuing need for cash. And although the lockdown and a lot of businesses saying they don't want to accept cash during, with the COVID sort of risk of transmission, has suppressed cash usage, we are seeing that it does rebound when the lockdown restrictions are lifted. So certainly some changes to the way things are done on that, but on accelerating existing trends. So in a way, it doesn't really change much about what we're doing. It's sort of reinforced the need to find an economically viable way of making sure that those that want and need to use cash can continue to do so.
Yeah, that's great, Tony. How can we meet the urgent need to get the economy back on its feet as soon as possible, as well as addressing the challenge of transitioning to net zero, do you think?
Well, I think this is a really important question, because there's no doubt that the impact on many businesses across the southwest, particularly obviously in retail, tourism, hospitality, restaurants and pubs and so on, have really suffered. Many of them quite possibly will not recover and will not reopen. They will just run out of road, really, despite government support packages that have been on offer. So, and that's a tragedy. Losing any business is an enormous shame. So there will be a need, and I think this is obviously where South Mutual, it's a shame. We feel a bit sad that we're not already up and running, because
Yeah.
that's our constituency. These are the businesses that we're trying to come into being to support. But I think, to maybe think more optimistically about it, then the economy will come back and people will start going out for meals, and we will get back to. It may take a while, longer perhaps than we think, but there will come a time again when we're up and down the high street and been able to mingle and socialize and do all of those good things. And so there's going to be opportunities for new businesses, for businesses to take over old businesses, and maybe that could be a real opportunity. Let's say if we have fewer large national high street chains,
Yeah.
some of whom might be owned by investors that aren't even based in the UK, let alone the Southwest, and perhaps more local shops and outlets and independent businesses could take their place, under community ownership or under local owners. So if we can end up with an economy that has been more relocalized in that way, then I think, particularly for the Southwest, which is less wealthy on some measures than other parts of the UK, then we can see this as an opportunity for lots of new businesses to come into being. And that's where I think we can dovetail that in with this important challenge of transforming our economy to become net zero carbon. And the national goal and the international goal indeed is to get there by 2050. But I think we need to get there sooner. Plenty of people make the same argument. And regardless of when you think we need to, I think the opportunity in our part of the world is we're able to. We can set ourselves that goal. And we have important green sectors and the so-called blue sector, which is marine businesses and technologies. So for our Southwest region, I think that there are, through the sort of devastation, economic devastation, if you like, that's been wrought by COVID. I think when we look ahead to the next few years, we can have a positive sense of a kind of a mission, really, to transform the economy into one that's much more sustainable, much more recirculating the money we've got within local communities, much more locally and independently owned and managed, really responsive to the needs of local people. And that's, that's our vision. That's the sort of economy which we think we can have, and there's one that would support much better widespread prosperity, as well as, those important goals of being an economy that supports biodiversity, that doesn't emit carbon, and that doesn't pollute its own waterways and air. So if that's a hell of a vision to aspire to, but it's a really important one. But I think we can do it, and that's that. We need to be ambitious.
Absolutely. I imagine it's been similar in your circles, but especially amongst young people over the past year. There's been a real acceptance of both of those challenges of relocalization and of moving to a net zero economy, society, a world in which we aren't trashing biodiversity. And I think it is sad to think about Southwest Mutual and how we're not yet there ready to kind of support people and businesses in that. But what it might have enabled us to do is to allow other people to kind of see our vision in a way, and hopefully come on side with us when we're ready to take off.
I think I'm glad you've raised that point, actually, because I think one of the opportunities we have as a new bank is that we don't have old technology, right? So we're starting with a clean sheet of paper. So rightly, and it's not just younger people, millennials and Gen Z, that have a very high expectation of the digital experience that they want and expect. And, we want to meet that and exceed that, because it's really important. But there are lots of other challenges out there that are providing that, new fintech and digital-based banks. What they are not offering is the point that you made. And, it's not that older people aren't concerned about the environment and concerned about climate change, but I think obviously for younger people, this is your whole life that is impacted by this. And I think there's an emotional attachment to that, and a sort of sense of, deep kind of urgency to that, which we see with the great movements that younger people, inspired by Greta Thunberg, no doubt, but also many others, have been great champions of cajoling, our political leaders and economic leaders into taking more action more quickly. And we want to be a bank for all of those guys, absolutely. But we're not. It's not enough to appeal to values, although that's vital. And I'm just emphasising that we want to provide a really slick banking experience too. So those twin goals are really important.
Absolutely, they don't have to come at the cost of the other.
Absolutely right. I hope that, in a way, we might see a time when we launch, we think will be quite distinct in this blend of our purpose-driven model, our deep commitment to being rooted in a place in the Southwest, but also being participatory, being a cooperative. But maybe in 10 years, 20 years time, most other banks will look like that. And actually, hey, we'd welcome that, because we just think we need the whole of the financial sector to be more responsive to its own customers, and to be value driven, and also to respect the needs of different places. We need the whole system to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony. It's been really good to catch up with you today.
Thank you.